are these people?
This is all
No
about.
link.
We're going to go through episodes through Twitter Files 4 and 5, which is about the decision to remove Trump and then the actual removal of Trump himself. So that's why I figured it was appropriate, on top of the fact that he did the NFTs, which sold out, of course, because he sells out everything to his loyal followers and fans. And this starts out with Michael Schellenberger, who I think is over at the Free Press or whatever Barry Weiss's outlet is. He's one of the writers over there. He's also been one of the 3 people that's been publishing the Twitter Files. This is his first. And this was about the removal of Donald Trump from January 7th. All right. And you can see, again, it's got 45,000 likes and 17,000 retweets. It's got some action on it. And we're going to use a thread reader so that we don't have to see all the tweets. But as the pressure builds, Twitter execs build the case. And we covered this at the end of last week, that on January 7th, senior executives create justifications to ban him. They seek a change of policy for him alone. Distinct from other political leaders, they express no concern for free speech or democracy implications of a ban. And this is reported with Elle Woodhouse. And I don't remember who Elle Woodhouse is, but this is some really good reporting, I have to say. That for years, Twitter had resisted calls to ban Trump. And blocking a world leader in their policy, as it wrote in 2018, would hide important info and hamper necessary discussion around their words and actions. So this gets interesting about the policy and when they decide to censor a world leader. After the events of January 6th, internal and external pressure on Jack grows for Michelle Obama, Kara Swisher, ADL, Prosecca, many others they want to ban. As it turns out, Jack was on vacation in French Polynesia that week. He phoned into meetings, but also delegated much of the handling of the situation to senior execs Yoel Roth, Vijaya. Okay.
Vijaya, watch your mouth. This is a family show.
Boys have a paraga. Girls
just say
have a
pussy.
vagina.
Just go ahead and say it.
Pussy.
Thank you. As context, it's important to understand. I had to let her finish. It's important to understand that Twitter's staff and senior execs were overwhelmingly progressive. And we pointed this out last week as well, that in 2018, 2020, and 2022, 96, 98, 99% of Twitter's staff political donations went to Democrats, respectively. In 2017, Roth tweeted, "There were actual Nazis in the White House." You know what? In all fairness, so did I. So did I.
Effing F.
I was a shit lib in 2017. I'll admit it. I was still TYT.
Michael Jordan, stop it. Get some help.
I did get some help. Thank you. I got Richard Medhurst and I got Jimmy Dore. I got some help. In April of 2022, though, Roth told a colleague that his goal is to drive change in the world, which is why he decided not to become an academic. Again, right from Slack, that person in pink is clearly a bigger threat to your brand of feminism than actual Nazis in the White House. We can talk about Yoel Roth and his proclivities, and some of his Twitter posts are pretty racy, I have to say. But on January 7th, Jack emails employees saying Twitter needs to remain consistent in its policies, including the right of users to return to Twitter after a temporary suspension. After, Roth reassures employee that people who care about this aren't happy with where we are. It's such like lib speak. All right. Yeah. There's an opportunity to help people understand that. I mean, it's very corporate. It's very PC. It's very, it's clear they just want to know that someone is doing something about this. And it's not that we're ignoring the issues here. The issues being censorship. No. All right. Yes. Around 11:30 in the morning Pacific time, Roth DMs his colleagues with news that he's excited to share. Guess what? Jack just approved repeat offender for civic integrity. New approach create a system where 5 violations or strikes would result in a permanent suspension. And guess what? Trump has already got 4. Progress. The exchange between Roth and his colleagues makes clear that they had been pushing Jack for greater restrictions on the speech Twitter allows around elections. Colleague wants to know what the decision means Trump can finally be banned. Person asks, does the incitement to violence aspect change that calculus? Roth says it doesn't. Trump continues to just have his 1 strike remaining. Right. So, Roth's colleague query about incitement to violence heavily foreshadows what will happen the following day. On January 8th, Twitter announces a permanent ban on Trump due to the risk of further incitement of violence. Kind of interesting, huh? That phrase is used. Now, last week we were talking about a certain employee, and as it turns out, that employee was ex-Intel and scrubbed his LinkedIn profile. So hey, how about that? On January 8th, Twitter says its ban is based specifically on how Trump's tweets are being received and interpreted. So now they are, they're now interpreters. In 2019, Twitter said it did not intend to determine all potential interpretations of the content of its intent, right? Specific to their policy on world leaders. An update. Why? The only serious concern we found expressed within Twitter over the implications for free speech and democracy of banning Trump came from a junior person in the organization, and it was tucked away in a lower level Slack channel known as Site Integrity Auto. And he says, whoever this person was, this might be an unpopular opinion, but one-off ad hoc decisions like this don't appear to be rooted in policy or, in my honest opinion, a slippery slope and reflect an alternatively equal dictatorial problem. This now appears to be a fiat by online platform CEO with a global presence that can gatekeep speech for the entire world, which seems unsustainable. Wow, that sounds a lot like something that I kind of talked about today. Anyway, Twitter employees use the term one-off frequently in their Slack discussions. Its frequent use reveals significant employee discretion over when and whether to apply warning labels on tweets and strikes on users. Here are typical examples. So here's somebody, USA secession. We're trying to understand the one-off decision here. And here's another one saying there's always abuse one-off, right? One-off is the option from bounce. Recall from Twitter Files 2 that according to Twitter staff, we control visibility quite a bit, and we control the amplification of your content quite a bit. And normal people do not know how much we do. We focused on that sentence very closely. Twitter employees recognize the difference between their own politics and Twitter's TOS, but they also engage in complex interpretations of content in order to stamp out prohibited tweets as a series of exchange over hashtag Stop the Steal review.
Yeah.
Right? So what he says is that Yoel Roth, he's having a conversation with somebody whose name is blacked out. I saw the hashtag and then did a search on it, and all the content was appalling. So I don't think it's showing up elsewhere. Thank you for all you're doing. I'll flag the election squad. We're proactively surfacing that content for review under civic integrity, and it should be blocked from Typehead and Trends. And you're seeing it in either of the latter two. I mean, this is controlling speech and narrative, right? Roth immediately DMs a colleague to ask that they add hashtag Stop the Steal and QAnon conspiracy term Kraken to a blacklist of terms to be de-amplified. Roth's colleague objects to the blacklisting Stop the Steal risk, de-amplifying counter speech that validates the election. Yes. Why do you need to silence people if...
You know about Phil, right?
Phil McCracken?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but that's not this one.
Yeah.
This is Sidney Powell's release to Kraken.
Oh.
Indeed notes Roth's colleague a quick search
Still
of top Stop the Steal tweets and their counter speech, but they quickly come up with a solution: de-amplify accounts with Stop the Steal in the name or profile, since those are not affiliated with counter speech specific to an incident or to they're just across the board. But it turns out that even blacklisting Kraken is less straightforward than they thought, because Kraken, in addition to being a QAnon conspiracy theory based on the mythological Norwegian sea monster, is also the name of a cryptocurrency exchange and was thus allow listed. Another one of these dystopian Orwellian unwords, allow listed. They used to call that whitelisted, but that's now considered racist. So now it's allow listed, I guess. And maybe that's better for the change. The change for the better. Honestly, I don't know. It just seems Orwellian. Allow listed versus deny listed. Employees struggle with whether to punish users who share screenshots of Trump's deleted January 6th tweets. They're saying we should bounce those tweets with a strike, given that the screenshot violates the policy. And somebody says they're criticizing Trump, so I'm a bit hesitant with applying the strike to this user. This also is where we get into a slippery slope. You can read, do the Trumpy voice, read the tweet.
These are the things and events that happen when a sacred landslide election victory is so unceremoniously and viciously stripped away from great patriots who have been badly and unfairly treated for so long. Go home with love and in peace. Remember this day forever.
I like it better than anything else.
No.
No,
Was that
that was forever. Right, we should bounce it again. So they're saying I'm a bit hesitant. So now that what they're trying to determine is intent. What if a user dislikes Trump and objects to Twitter's censorship? The tweet still gets deleted. But since the intention is not to deny the election result, no punishing strike is applied. Quote, if there are instances when intent is unclear, please feel free to raise. How about like all of them? So here's a few more. Here's another one that says, I don't even like the man, but I'm not going to put up with Twitter deleting opinions they don't like.
You're wrong.
Again, sounds like today.
Wrong.
Right.
Wrong.
So again, if there are instances where they're unclear, would agree delete only in instances where the content is not shared with abusive intent. They are now determining people's tone and their tone policing. Around noon, a confused senior executive in advertising sends a DM to Roth. I love this because I'm in sales, so like a sales guy came up with this. Sales exec. Jack says, we'll permanently suspend Trump if our policies are violated after a 12-hour account lock. What policies is Jack talking about? Yoel Roth comes back and says, any policy violation. Holy shit. Yes. And here's the messaging. JP, and his name is JP, whoever he is. JP, legend, by the way, for internal awareness. But before sharing anything, please coordinate with so-and-so on the comms side. Obviously, a ton of interest in our position on this. Want to ensure we stay aligned. Dude, this guy was such a corporate worm. I mean, literally, he looks like Jeff Miami. I think he might be Jeff Miami.
Probably.
What happens next is essential to understanding how Twitter justified.
I mean, you've not seen
Trump.
Yoel Roth and Geoff Miami in the same room.
Right?
So.
Sales exec says, we are dropping the public interest policy now. Roth 6 hours later. In this specific case, we're changing our policy with our public interest approach for his account. Though we do have work planned on revisions in the first half of 2021. Great. When he's not president anymore. Yeah, that revision, by the way, which you're going to find out, they want to completely ban him permanently once he wasn't president anymore. That was their plan either way. So, this ad exec is referring to Twitter's policy of public interest exceptions, which allows the content of elected officials, even if it violates Twitter rules, if it directly contributes to understanding or discussion of a matter of public concern. Right? So this is where they're going to try to use and limit, but you're going to see the hypocrisy here. And Barry Weiss is going to point that out in part 5. But Roth pushes for permanent suspension of Matt Gaetz, even though it doesn't quite fit anywhere. Duh. All right. It's kind of a test case for rationale for banning Trump. I'm trying to talk Twitter's safety team into removal as a conspiracy that incites violence. All right. And that's about Antifa and SIPPIZ and SI are working on that. These are all these teams. And Vijaya was directionally okay. Yeah, see here. I'm trying to talk to safety. I think we'll get over the line for removal as a conspiracy that incites violence. Vijaya was directionally okay with it. So already you've got like legal and compliance, and they're all already trying to get rid of this guy. Amazingly, Matt Gaetz never gets taken off of Twitter. Around 2:30, comms execs DM Roth to say that they don't want to make a big deal of the QAnon ban to the media because they fear if we push this, it looks like we're trying to offer up something in place of the thing everyone wants, meaning a Trump ban. Well, yeah. We can explain why if we're asked, but worry that if we push it, looks like we're trying to offer it. Yep. And Yoel acknowledges that. Yep. He doesn't care. That evening, a Twitter engineer DMs Roth again to say, I feel a lot of debates around exceptions stem from the fact that Trump's account is not technically different from anybody else, and yet treated differently due to his personal status without corresponding Twitter rules to clarify the responsibilities that should come with that status. You're holding him to a standard and not telling him what the rules are. That's what they're saying. And Roth's response hints again at how Twitter would justify deviating from its long-standing policy, which is to put a different spin on it. Policy is one part of the system, how Twitter works. We ran into the world changing faster than we were able to either adapt the product or the policy. So, fuck you. This is how it is. We had to adapt fast. This is not. We can and should do both, not directly. So, the evening of January 7th, the same junior employee who expressed the unpopular opinion originally about ad hoc decisions speaks up one last time before the end of the day. Bless that employee, man. What kind of courage they had. The only serious concern we found expressed, and again, I grabbed that tweet again from earlier, and I'm re-showing that. What that concern was that doesn't appear to be rooted in policy. Speaks up one last time. Earlier in the day, they wrote that their concern specifically surrounding the unarticulated logic of the decision by Facebook. That space fills with the idea, conspiracy theory, that all internet moguls sit around like kings, casually deciding what people can and cannot see. And they linked to this 1-0 article. Will Oremus noted the inconsistency too. Linking to this article, Facebook chuckled. It chucked its own rule book to ban Trump. Right? The underlying problem is that the dominant platforms have always been loath to own up to their subjectivity because it highlights the extraordinary, unfettered power they wield over the global public square and places the responsibility for that power on their own shoulders. So they hide behind an ever-changing rulebook, alternately pointing to it when it's convenient and shoving it under the nearest rug when it isn't. Facebook's suspension of Trump now puts Twitter in an awkward position. If Trump does indeed return to Twitter, the pressure on Twitter will ramp up to find a pretext on which to ban him as well. Indeed, and as Barry will show in the next Twitter files, that's exactly what ended up happening. And I wanted to stop here for a minute and just kind of go over, like, there wasn't that much to that, but there still was quite a bit. Yoel Roth, I'm glad they removed him. There's been a lot, and he had to move, and there's been a lot of backlash in the corporate media about Yoel Roth and hand-wringing and crying, and he's been doxxed, and he's had to move, and look, man, I feel bad. Nobody should be doxxed. It's terrible. There needs to be accountability for that, and I don't think there ever will be anywhere, and people are mad. People who, like, again, we could go back and watch the dueling election denials again. The video that Turncoat Don made, and he's just completely partisan, and it's wrong. It's wrong on either side to be that kind of partisan, and again, between all of them. It's not just that they're political donations between them and all the Twitter employees. It was a real, they didn't know what to do. I can see that there's tons of confusion in these messages. There's no guidance coming. And I wanted to point out, again, Jack was in French Polynesia. How involved was he in the day-to-day in those 4 days or 3 days in the lead up, where it says right early on that he outsourced a lot of those decisions to Parag, to Vijaya, and to Yoel Roth, who he was in close contact with. So he's getting their perspective, and he's getting their take on the whole situation, where they're like, we got to ban this guy. We got to ban this guy. He's going to get somebody killed. They're screaming and they're fear-mongering the hell out of this guy. And he's on vacation with his family in French Polynesia. You think he really, he's plugged into what's happening? I just don't. I don't. Not only that, but he's also the CEO of another company that's on the Fortune 500. Oh, yeah, there's that too. Anyway, I did want to get back to